Is it a pie? Is it a pizza? No, it's a galette. But what the heck is that? Stick around because I'm gonna teach you how to make my curried squash galette. You are gonna love this recipe because it's a little bit savory, it's a little bit sweet, but best of all, I'm gonna teach you how to make the flakiest crust of your life. Let's talk about what a galette is. Basically, it is a rustic, freeform tart. They are round, they are flat, and they are quintessentially French. First things first, you wanna get a big bowl. To the bowl, we're gonna add 1 1/4 cups of flour. And to that, we're gonna add 3/4 teaspoons of salt, some freshly ground black pepper, which is a little out of the ordinary. We are making a Pate Brisee, not to be confused with a pâte sucrée, which is a sweet classic French pastry. So mix that up. And now we are incorporating a little mad genius into our pastry. We're gonna shred an entire stick of unsalted butter. The flakiest pastry comes from having really cold butter suspended in layers in your dough. The moisture in the butter evaporates instantly and causes your dough to puff up. One handy dandy little trick is to actually drop your stick of butter right into the flour. What that's gonna do is prevent the butter from sticking to the box grater while you're shredding. You want to use the large holes of your box grater here, kind of go really long from the top of the grater all the way to the bottom, which are gonna give you really long, beautiful flakes of butter. Okay, it's time to reveal all these beautiful flecks of butter. Give me a drum roll. Look at all that butter. All right, we're going in with our hands, really gently sort of toss all of that butter with the flour. You can see all these beautiful flakes of butter. You wanna work it as little as possible. Next up, 1/3 of a cup of really, really ice cold water. And then we're gonna go ahead and use our hands to mix the wet ingredients into the dry ingredients. And then as the dough starts to come together, you're just gonna fold it over itself just a couple times. If at any point your dough starts to warm up, just pop it in the refrigerator or the freezer for a few minutes to kind of cool it back down. Just like that, you have your beautiful Pate Brisee, sort of soft as a baby's button. I won't say butt on TV. Oh shoot, I said butt. All right, you're gonna fold over the plastic, fold over the other side. And then what I like to do is sort of flatten the disc. You want it to be anywhere from 3/4 to 1 inch thick, which is just gonna make it a lot easier to roll it out. Into the refrigerator for 1 hour. While our dough is hanging out in that fridge and getting nice and cool, we are gonna prep our filling. This recipe calls for 1 pound of butternut squash, very popular. I'm gonna start by cutting it in half. I'm gonna use the top end because it's gonna give me really even pieces that will cook up nicely. Get off all of that really thick skin. This is actually the easiest squash to peel because you can see it's sort of even, it's got nice straight sides. And look, I didn't even know I did that. We're gonna wanna cut this into 1/4 inch thick slices lengthwise first, and then cut it into 1/4 inch thick slices crosswise, just like this. So they do have a tendency to stick together because they have starch, and so you just wanna sort of separate them with your hands. So the recipe calls for kabocha squash. I actually wasn't able to find it, so I went to the local store and they had buttercup. Really, any sort of firm flesh squash is gonna work here. You're not gonna go with those summer varieties that are just gonna sort of disintegrate. We need 1 pound of this. It's almost like cutting a pumpkin. Start in the middle, cut it down, rotate it, and then you're gonna do the same thing on the other side. And then you've got this really, really orange. It's like Technicolor. This is where a kitchen scale comes in handy. You don't have to do this part, just guesstimate, but I wanna weigh it. Oh wow. So this is 1 3/4 pounds. So let's go ahead and cut off about 3/4 pounds. Perfect. Save all your extra squash. Take a spoon and scrape out all of those seeds. Just like that, clean squash. And then you're just gonna go ahead and take your peeler and go all the way around. All right, so sometimes it's hard to sort of, I broke it. My beautiful orange peeler. Okay, fixed it. Sometimes it can be difficult sort of peeling around the curved part of the squash. So if that happens, just cut it into smaller pieces. I'm just gonna go ahead and cut this piece in half. This is a lot easier than peeling one of these. If you don't know, now you know. Okay, it's done. All right, just like the butternut squash, I'm gonna go ahead and cut it into big sort of half moons like this because I think it looks really beautiful. If those are a little too big when you start building it, you can just cut them into halves. Besides the squash, we wanna add an allium. We're gonna go ahead and cut this onion in half and peel off that outer layer. This core is holding it all together, so we're gonna go ahead and cut through the core into 1/2-inch thick wedges. We wanna coat this with some oil, so we're gonna go in with 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. Then we're gonna add some kosher salt, some freshly ground black pepper, and then, because this is a curried squash galette, we're gonna add some Madras curry powder. So we're gonna go in with our hands and toss all of these vegetables together. Spread it in an even layer, and then we are going to put this in a 425-degree ovens for about 15 minutes until it's just tender. After the squash and the onion roasted, I let it cool because the key to the flakiest pastry ever is to have it extremely cold. Do not take that pastry out of the refrigerator until you are ready to roll, which we are now. Look at that, beautiful. But you could see all the little specks of butter. Go ahead and dust your work surface with some flour and give your dough a dust. I always prefer a French rolling pin. It's really long, it has tapered ends, which gives me a lot of area to work with. We're gonna go ahead and roll this out to a 14-inch round. I like to start in the middle of the dough and either roll out or roll towards you, and then rotate the dough either 45 degrees or 90 degrees. And if at any point your dough starts to stick, just give it another little dusting of flour. If at any point your dough gets warm or soft, get it onto a baking sheet and either get it in the refrigerator or the freezer to cool it down again, because flaky, flaky, flaky. All right, 14, perfect. Roll it up, not tightly, just very loose, onto your rolling pin, and then you're gonna go ahead and unroll it onto your baking sheet. Now we're gonna add some richness. We're adding sour cream. So we're gonna go ahead and spread a 1/2 cup of sour cream, but we wanna leave a 1.5-inch border. All right, we spread it on, and we're gonna add a lot more flavor here. This time, we are leaving France, we're going to Spain. We're adding a little bit of manchego cheese, so about a 1/4 cup. And again, you wanna maintain that 1.5-inch border. So now we're going in with that veg, that incredible curry-scented squash we have here. I like to use a flat fish spatula for this, and you're just gonna go ahead and spread your vegetables evenly all over that sour cream and that manchego cheese. Might look like a lot, but you wanna get it all in there. And of course, 1 layer of cheese is never enough, so we're gonna go in with another 1/4 cup of that cheese. Ladies and gentlemen, we are ready to fold. So what you're gonna wanna do is fold that border of dough just up over the ingredients and sort of pinch little corners so that it stays nice and tight. It's gonna look rustic and it's gonna look beautiful, and we're gonna have flaky dough. And just like that, this is ready to go into a 450-degree oven for about 35 minutes. And then we've got the reveal. It is looking absolutely divine. You hear that? That is what we're looking for. It's what I'm here for. After I took it out of the oven, I just put it on a rack to cool for about 10 minutes. Totally optional. Let me just look at her for a little bit. Oh gosh. We're going in for it. That squash is naturally sweet, but we added that manchego cheese with sour cream, that curry powder, which is making this super savory. But best of all, we have that incredibly crisp, flaky crust that I promised you. It couldn't get any more flaky. It's super flake, it's super flaky. Just when you thought I couldn't be more of a dork.